All right, now we're going to go to the elbow joint. Now, the elbow can really just do two things. It could bend and straighten the forearm. Bending the joint is flexion. Straightening the joint is extension. So really, those are the only two movements at the elbow. But the forearm bones can actually rotate around each other, and that's called supination and pronation. So we got a few motions there. So these muscles that we're going to look at first that cross the elbow joint, we mentioned them before when we went through prime mover, antagonist, synergist, that slide earlier in the PowerPoint. So let's look at one of the prime movers of elbow flexion. And when the elbow bends, the forearm moves as a result. So forearm and elbow can be used interchangeably, just like head or neck, just like shoulder or arm. Well, elbow and forearm, these can be used interchangeably with motion at the elbow. So the biceps brachii, let's go through that first. Brachii means arm, and that's where that muscle is located in the arm, but it's actually going to pull up on the forearm, right? It's causing the elbow joint to be used. So biceps brachii flexes, which is bending, as if this person's just kind of bringing this ball up, and it supinates. Remember, supination is palm up, pronation is palm down. So biceps brachii flexes and supinates the forearm or the elbow. It has two heads, a long and a short head. Well, that's where the bi comes from. Biceps, two heads. You see a shorter head here and then a longer head because it has to work its way all the way around, right, to the same point. But there's your biceps brachii, prime mover of elbow flexion, or you can say forearm flexion, but also performs supination. Here's a synergist of elbow flexion. That's the brachialis. It's deep to the biceps brachii. Then you have brachioradialis. This muscle is found mostly in the forearm, although it does cross the elbow joint, so it aids in forearm or elbow flexion as well. And there's your brachioradialis. The antagonist of the biceps brachii is the triceps brachii because it's found on the opposite side of the arm, the posterior side of the arm. It crosses the elbow joint, right, but on the posterior side. So this muscle, the triceps brachii, is going to straighten the elbow, causing the forearm to move, to unbend, right, or straighten. So it's the prime mover of elbow extension, right, which is the antagonist action of flexion. And of course, elbow or forearm can be used interchangeably. Why is it called triceps brachii? Well, brachii means arm. It's found in the arm, although it acts on the forearm or elbow. Triceps means it has three heads. Biceps had two, triceps had three. Well, let's count them. Well, here's one head, right? That would be the lateral head. Then right beside it is the long head because it's the longest of the three. From this angle, you can only see a little bit of the medial head kind of running on the medial side. It's hidden here. You can see a little bit of it right up here where it inserts onto the humerus, right? So there's your three heads. Well, here's two muscles in the forearm that are named for their action. The pronator muscle, called the pronator teres, pronates where the supinator supinates. So you have pronation and supination. Pronation is palm down, supination is palm up, and you can see how these muscles will contract to spin the radius around the ulna in these pictures. Kind of nice, like I said earlier, when muscles are named for their action, and these are. So when one's the prime mover, the other's the antagonist, and well, then you can reverse them. When the supinator is the prime mover, well, the pronator teres becomes the antagonist because they perform opposite actions. So when one's contracting or shortening, the other is relaxing or lengthening. Now we're looking at the forearm. This is the anterior forearm, meaning the front of the forearm. Front being, think about anatomical position, right? The part of your forearm that faces forward. These muscles will cross the wrist joint into the hand and the fingers. So even though these muscles are in the forearm, they're going to be pulling on the wrist, pulling on the hand and fingers, moving it or bending it at the wrist or bending the finger joints. And the nice thing about all these muscles right here, although they have long names, they're named for their action, except for this one, palmaris longus. So why don't I get this one out of the way first? Palmaris, think of the palm. Longus, meaning, well, there's some long muscles compared to brevis muscles, which are short, but there's your palm, and you see all these tendons here, and if you follow it, yeah, that's your palmaris longus. It's going to flex the wrist. It's going to bend the wrist. But look at all the other muscles here. We can make out what they do, their action, by their name, and sometimes where they're located by another word which gives us more information. So flexor carpi is the action, flex the wrist. Well, there's where it's found on the radius side. Remember, the radius is on the thumb side. So there's your flexor carpi radialis, flexes the wrist on the radial side. There's that palmaris longus we did earlier, but then we have a muscle that flexes the wrist on the ulna side, which is the flexor carpi ulnaris. So remember, the radius is lateral, the ulna is medial in the forearm. Then we have a flexor digitorum. So what do you think that might do? Flex the digits or the fingers. There's a superficial one, superficialis. If it were to be removed, there's a deeper one. Profundus means deep, profound, right? Profundus, deep. So there's your two finger flexors, flexor digitorums, superficialis and profundus. And then think about what this muscle might do. Flexor pollicis. There happens to be a longus and a brevis, a long and short one. Brevis is not on your lab list. That's why you don't see it here, just the longus. So in chapter 1, you might recall a term pollex, which means thumb, right? That anatomical landmark, pollex. Well, this is the muscle ending for pollex, pollicis. So flexor pollicis longus, well, flexes the thumb. That's bending the thumb. Now we can go to the posterior forearm, the back of the forearm, and we can see there's a bunch of muscles there too that act on the wrist and hand and fingers, and again named according to their action. So you should recognize all these terms now. The only new one is indices, which would be your index finger, which would be that finger right there. So let's go through them. Extensor carpi radialis, extend the wrist on the thumb side, the radial side. There's a long and a short, a longus and a brevis. Extensor digitorum extends the fingers, which refer to digits. Extensor carpi ulnaris extends the wrist on the ulna side. Extensor pollicis extends the thumb, that's straightening the thumb. There's a short and a long, brevis and longus. Extensor indices extends the index finger, that's straightening it. And abductor pollicis longus, well, abducts the thumb. Abduction would be moving it to the side, further, right, from the other fingers.